Good morning, everybody. It's Bernard Nomberg. It is Tuesday. It is 10 o'clock Central. It is the time for another weekly episode of Nomberg Law Live. And I'm so excited to have my guest, my friend, fellow Alabama lawyer, Nathan Harris, as my guest today. Nathan, it's always good to see your face. I really appreciate you making some time for us today. How's your world?
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for inviting me to be on. It's always fun to talk with you and talk with all the folks on Facebook. My world's good. Woke up this morning. It's chilly outside. Legitimately had to put a sweater on.
I
So
know.
things are good in my world when I don't wake up and feel like I'm in a sauna.
Well, and that's about 10 and a half months in our state, some
Yeah.
years. But Nathan, like I said, is a buddy of mine, and he and I are in some lawyer groups. But more importantly, Nathan is an attorney who does some very important work, not just in the Birmingham metro area, but throughout our state. And that's why I brought him on. He also services a clientele that most lawyers do not. And that's the Hispanic community, that's the non English as first language community. And Nathan and his staff do such a fantastic job that I want to talk about that today. But before we get into what your firm currently does and their awesome work, I want to go back a little bit, Nathan, because nobody ever gets there in a hurry. And I know you've got a great story. I know that your family's not originally from the United States, but you've made the United States your home. So share a little bit about your family's background and how did you get to Jasper, to Walker County, Alabama?
Sure. So yeah, my story starts, even before I was here. So my dad is originally from Coleman, Alabama, a little bitty spot named Crane Hill that's now famous for Smith Lake.
Mhm.
But growing up, there was no lake there. So he was a chicken farming family, and he learned really quickly that he wanted to get out of the farming business. So when he graduated high school, he went down to Auburn University, and he never came back to Crane Hill from Auburn University. He stayed down there. He did all the semesters. He did summer semesters. He did winter semesters, and he graduated really, really quickly with a degree in sociology.
Mhm.
And about 3 months before he was going to graduate with his degree in sociology, he started looking around. And even back then, he said, "What am I going to do with this degree? I can't become a sociologist and get paid for that, really." So he went and got a teaching certificate. And he realized, well, I got to do some student teaching, and looked on the billboard, and there was an advertisement for student teaching down in Costa Rica. And it was a cold December, January, gray, nasty day, kind of sprinkling all day. And he said, "You know what? I want to check out Costa Rica. That sounds better than this cold, dreary day in Alabama." So he goes down and he does in student teaching in Costa Rica. And that literally changed the course of his life and all of our lives, his kids that he didn't have yet. So he finished his student teaching. He flew back to the States, and he's sitting on the tarmac at Birmingham International Airport. And it's one of those cold, nasty December, it's probably more like March days at this point. And he says, "Well, I gotta figure out a way to get back down there. South America is incredible." That was Central America. And so he couldn't Google at the time because it was the 70s. He
Right.
starts calling his buddies like, "Hey, what can I do?" And he learned about the Peace Corps. And so dad applied to the Peace Corps. He was rejected. He called up one of his buddies that was clerking for a senator up in Washington, said, "Hey, can you steal a piece of letterhead and write me a letter of recommendation from your boss?" Legitimate, that's what happened. And so he got this great letter of recommendation from, I forget what senator, but doesn't really matter anymore. Got him into the Peace Corps, and he got a list of places where he could be stationed,
Mhm.
all in South America, because he had rejected kind of going to Africa. He didn't want to go over there. He wanted to go somewhere a little bit closer. And one of them was Bogota, Colombia, which is Bogota, but he thought Bogota. He had no language skills at the time. And one was Ecuador.
Mhm.
And so he says, "Okay, I'm going to pick Ecuador. I'm a chicken farmer. I'm going to teach people how to raise chickens." And so he signs up for this 3 year stint in the CIA. I'm sorry, the the Peace Corps. Back then, people were saying all the Peace Corps volunteers were CIA agents, and that's kind of the running joke in my family is that Dad was really in the CIA, not in the Peace Corps.
And you may not know whether he was or not.
No, he absolutely has never said he was in the CIA,
Yeah.
but that's exactly what a CIA agent would say.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. And so he's down there for a couple months or a year or so, and he starts going to all of these embassy parties, and he meets Mom at a party at the U.S. Embassy in Quito, and they hang out. They figure out they like each other. They like each other's company. And then he flies back to the United States after his 3 years are up. He spent quite a good long while with Mom down there. And he comes to the University of Kentucky, and he's studying agricultural economics. And one of those cold, wet, nasty days, even colder up in Kentucky.
Yeah.
And he realizes, I don't like this anymore. I'm going to go get a signature loan from the bank, fly down to Ecuador, and I'm going to marry that girl. So he goes down there and he marries her. And my grandfather gives my mom like $2,000. Said, here's enough money. If this doesn't work out, you get a plane ticket and you come back home. Cash. But they move back up to the United States. They end up in Coleman. They end up in Crane Hill, which is a far cry from how Mom grew up. So at that time, in the 70s, Ecuador was a military dictatorship, and her father was a physician, actually the top ranking medical officer in the Ecuadorian Navy. Wow. So she grew up with, staff. She grew up with drivers. She grew up with butlers, all those kind of things. Mm-hmm. Then she moves to Crane Hill as a, 20-year-old and to a trailer, on the side of a road.
Talk about culture shock. Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Keep going. Go. This is fast. No, this is fascinating. Please keep going.
She tells a story that, in other countries in South America, public transport is prolific. If you need to get to the other side of the city, you walk out your door, you go to the bus stop, you get on a bus and you go. Excuse me. But in Coleman County in the 70s, there wasn't really a good public transportation system. Mm-hmm. So she goes out of her trailer when she moves up to Coleman, and she waits on the bus. And the only bus that comes by twice a day in front of her trailer was the school bus. And it didn't stop for her. Mm-hmm. And so she goes back to the trailer, and Dad meets her at home when he gets off work, and she's upset. And I think she almost uses that $2,000 to fly home when she figured out that she can't get anywhere. And they finally went and bought her a car as well. So, that's how we became a 2-car household. But that was before we, came onto the scene in terms of kids or anything like that.
I love to hear the backstories, the journey of not just how we got to where we are today, but those stories of the perseverance. Had your mom not stayed, had your dad not found this area of Alabama where he started the family, who knows? You may or may not be sitting here talking with us. But
absolutely. A lot of stars had to line up, just right, for those things to have happened.
Yeah. And guys, I'm talking with Nathan Harris, a local attorney to the Hoover and Birmingham area, a friend of mine. He's sharing a little bit of the family backstory, but now I want to hear how you became a lawyer. What was your inspiration? How is it that you ended up on the map in the legal field?
Sure. So Mom and Dad, I'll pick up the story kind of where I left off in Crane Hill. Dad was working for a farmer trying to do the international business thing, and it just wasn't working out. And Mom is really bright, really smart, and she'd had some family members in the insurance business back in South America. She looked at Dad and said, you need to go into the insurance business. So he said, okay, well, how do I do that? So he called up Nationwide Insurance and said, hey, I want to be one of your agents. And in the 70s, I think it was 79 when they opened up their agency, maybe 80. They said, okay, great. We've got a location for you in Jasper, Alabama. And so they picked up and moved from Crane Hill to Jasper, Alabama. And my older brother was born in 82, and I'm an 84 model, and there's 5 of us.
Wow.
That's how Dad calls us, like models of cars, 82 model, 84, 86,
That's
90,
so great.
and 92.
That's so great.
Yeah. So we're just all model cars to him, because car insurance was his big thing. That was kind of his, his bread and butter in the insurance business, the property casualty. But at one point, they're serial entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, they were running 3 distinct businesses with 6 locations.
Wow.
An insurance agency that had 2 locations, Jasper and Coleman, a pizzeria that had 2 locations, Jasper and Dora, and then a video store that had 2 locations, Jasper and Coleman.
And 5 young children.
And 5 young children. Wow. So they were busy.
Wow.
They were busy. So growing up, that's all I knew was, parents that had so many businesses, you kind of did your own thing. They never had a real job like working for somebody else throughout my whole life. So I like to say I come by, having my own law firm, honestly. It's just natural to me. So to get back to answering your question, I saw Dad, and he actually started and stopped law school 3 times at Birmingham School of Law.
Wow.
He would start and he just had too much going on with 6 businesses and 5 kids and a marriage and just all the other things in life that you've got to keep going. And then law school, he was trying to put on top. Mm-hmm. And so he wanted to go to law school because he saw the insurance companies and how they were taking advantage of his clients. And so that kind of, started to grow up into me, a love for helping people and seeing clients that were injured and being taken advantage by insurance companies, and seeing how lawyers could help people.
It's so interesting that you bring that up. As you know, my brother David and I are business partners and brothers, and we grew up in our dad's law firm. And it probably was similar to our observations and what we saw that you did in your dad's insurance business. And what I mean by that is people needed help. They were being taken advantage of. And then what we saw was how you can make a difference as a lawyer. And most lawyers have that moment or moments in their life that really resonate with them, whether they saw a TV show or it was something in real life with a family member or friend or neighbor. Did you have that moment, or was it the series of moments just seeing your dad's interactions with his customers, his clients, so to speak?
I can't point back to that exact Parry moment that I would say it was that moment where I saw, Linda getting taken advantage of. I do remember we had an employee at our pizzeria, and her husband got ran over, and she had some coverage on her policy, and she went out and got a lawyer. And I remember Dad going to her and say, hey, I think you can take care of this yourself. You might want to try doing that before you get a lawyer. So she was able to get paid the full limits on the underlying and the coverage without actually having to sign a contract with the lawyer. So he was out to actually help. Dad was to help her, to help his employee, because he had gone to law school and had a little bit of training. So even though that lawyer didn't get a fee, and then now on this side of it, being a lawyer, I would be, well, maybe you do need a lawyer, but just seeing Dad's heart to help people just over and over again kind of grew that in me.
Well, guys, if you're just joining us, or if you're watching us on replay later on, I'm with Nathan Harris, and we're going to talk a little bit about Abogados Centro.
Abogados Centro Legal.
Thank you for butchering. Sorry about that. But Nathan and his firm service such a wide variety of people throughout our state. And Nathan, I want you to share a little bit about what's the motto, what's the theme, what's the mindset of your firm, who, because you've been doing this for so long, and if my math serves me right, you just celebrated a 37th birthday yesterday, so happy
That's
birthday.
right. Yeah. Thank you.
Uh, let's talk a little bit about the law firm and the approach that you guys have taken and do such a great job. So share a little bit about the firm.
Sure. I appreciate that. We try to do a good job. Now, we try to represent the monolingual Spanish speaking population in Alabama and some in Tennessee. I'm licensed in Tennessee as well, but in a very authentic way. And what I mean by like that is that everyone in my office, from attorneys to staff to our answering service, everybody is completely bilingual and probably 90% bicultural as well. So we understand not just the language, we understand the struggles that they've gone through that are different struggles that if you've grown up here in Alabama or Birmingham somewhere like that your entire life. And so we try to help them understand not just the complexities of their individual cases, but taking that and peeling that onion back a layer, the complexities of our legal system and how that differs to their legal system in, say, Guatemala or Honduras or Mexico or wherever they are originally from. And so we do that in a variety, including, excuse me, immigration cases, of course, because most of our clients have immigration issues.
Mm-hmm.
We also do that in personal injury cases, which I usually get involved in the more complex personal injury cases, especially with if it's a work comp case and there's some type of different contractors and different employers. So we can look at a third party case. And sometimes with those cases, we get different law firms around the state involved in those and help because they get pretty complex. And then we also do federal overtime and minimum wage violations. So our firm, go ahead.
No, I was going to say those cases right there are, I don't know about currently, but historically have been pretty prevalent because just trying to take advantage of the workers who don't know differently.
No, absolutely. And so over the lifetime of our firm, we have filed over 200 individual FLSA claims. So we've really been able to affect change, at least in the North and Central Alabama regions, of how employers pay immigrants and how employers pay, especially undocumented immigrants. They now know, or at least on a large basis, your Mexican restaurants and your other restaurants and your hotels, that these federal labor laws apply to these immigrants, even though they may be here undocumented or as they think illegally and don't deserve the protections. The law is quite clear and they do deserve those protections.
Well, you know, I'm so glad you brought that issue up because I was going to ask you, what does residency or citizenship status, how does that impact the laws of Alabama or the federal laws? Meaning, if you're undocumented, if you're considered an illegal alien or whatever your status may be,
Sure.
Can you still pursue claims for injuries or compensation for salaries or whatever that from an overtime standpoint? Does that impact your ability? Do you still have those rights?
Excuse me. You definitely have those rights to pursue those that have wronged you in terms of a personal injury action. Mm-hmm. And those rights derive from the Constitution of the United States. Mm-hmm. And those rights attach to anybody that's found present here on U.S. soil. Mm-hmm. It's the whole Guantanamo Bay, conundrum that the U.S. government has. Mm-hmm. They built Guantanamo Bay because they don't want to bring the terrorists and whoever else onto U.S. soil. Because when those people get on U.S. soil, the U.S. Constitution provides them with those constitutional rights. Yeah. And one of those rights is to be able to get redress whenever they're injured. And so that right also extends to workers' compensation capacity. They can definitely sue for workers' compensation benefits. They can definitely sue for overtime and minimum wage benefits as well. Now, there are some complexities involved in terms of the damage amounts. If we get into a complicated case and we have some lost wages inside of a PI case or something like that, most of the time we'll waive those lost wages amounts, because at that point the damages are so severe that they've been catastrophically injured. And so if we were to try to pursue those wage damages, it opens the door into those status issues. And if we keep that door closed, that way the jury doesn't learn about it. Because if I'm bringing a case to trial in Shelby County, legally it may not be a big point, but to the jury, it's a big point. They want to know, why are they here? Why are they working? They shouldn't be getting anything because they shouldn't be here anyway. At least that's the thinking of the jury.
Certainly, because each county is different in its makeup of liberal versus conservative mindsets, whatever you want to describe it. But an even bigger issue, not the law, but with so many people who are impacted with injuries or damages of some sort in our state, Nathan, who come from different cultures, different countries, different parts of the world, there's a trust issue that must be established between lawyer and potential client or plaintiff. And my approach to that is going to be different than your approach to that, or their approach to my firm versus approaching your firm. And that's what I want to ask a little bit about. Is I've noticed it over the last 20 odd years that a lot of times there are a little bit of this, I don't know if I really want to get involved because I don't trust the system, or I don't know this lawyer versus someone who doesn't speak naturally my language.
Sure.
How do you, when you approach clients from other countries or other backgrounds, how do you get across that trust issue and bridge the gap so that they do understand just because you're pursuing these cases doesn't mean you're going to be deported, doesn't mean you're going to be
Absolutely
reported. You have these same rights as people who were born here and those types of things, because I know that's a real concern. They may have the best case in the world, but if there's not that trust between lawyer and client, it's not going to go anywhere.
That's right. And that's one of the building blocks that we've built this firm on, or I've built the firm on, is being able to develop trust. And I say that because it's so important. And that's one of the reasons that everybody in the firm is bilingual, because I want us to be able to communicate effectively 100% of the time in the client's preferred language. And some of the time, the client's preferred language is English. Some of the time, it's in Spanish. Rarely do we get a Mayan language or something like that. And then we'll bring in some translators, because I do want, they're going to understand a lot of the Spanish, but I want them to understand 100% of what is going on. And that's what's difficult with lawyers that are not bilingual and bicultural, is the communication aspect. And that's one of the reasons that other lawyers all around the state get us involved in more complex cases, of course, so we can help develop that trust for that client. And also the immigration component of our firm is huge in developing that trust, because we let the clients know right away that, hey, I have a top-notch rock star immigration attorney on staff. He's available to me 100% of the time. If I have a question about their immigration status, we're going to get it answered. We're going to get that issue knocked out. And then I know a lot about immigration as well, just working in this field for the past 11 years. Even though I don't handle the immigration cases myself, we do a lot here in the firm. But we've had a lot of our more complex cases where in the course of the case, we can file for some immigration benefits because something has changed with them. And so we're able to inoculate the whole undocumented immigrant issue. Where, if they've gone to another attorney in town that doesn't have kind of those puzzle pieces put together, that would have not happened. And so we're able to provide value to those clients in ways that other firms are just not set up to do. And so we're able to tell the clients, look, we've handled all of these other previous cases for the 11 years. We've had clients deported before, but not for filing a case. They were deported for drinking and driving. They were deported for domestic violence issues. They were deported for XYZ. So we give them a list of things not to do during the pendency of their cases. And, it's just common sense things. Me and you are not going to go drink and drive. We're not going to go beat somebody in our house. They're just things that you just don't want to do. And all of our clients don't need to be doing those things. But even more so with an undocumented client, because they will get deported for those things. But letting them know that they're not going to be deported because we filed their FLSA overtime minimum wage lawsuit or their personal injury lawsuit, or we're going after the employer for XYZ, and them knowing that, hey, we're in the community, we're a pillar of this Hispanic community in Alabama. They see us, we've been here a long time, we're stable, and they can trust us.
And if you guys don't know Nathan or his law firm, then you haven't been around Hoover or mid-state Alabama, because they get out in the community, they support the community. Name a festival, name an outdoors event this time of the year, Nathan and his group are going to be there. And Nathan, I really do applaud all that you're doing for so many different communities. But one thing you haven't brought up, and I don't know if you started to promote this, but you're a wedding officiant internationally at this point. And I really applaud that as well, to add to your resume and maybe to the firm's offering for future.
Yeah, I'm actually may put it on the letterhead now, wedding officiant, and put an asterisk, in Mexico, because one of our good friends, a mutual friend, got married in Mexico a couple of weeks ago now, and he asked me to be the officiant for the wedding, and it's a great honor. And I'd never done that before, but I said, of course, I love being in front of people. I love, I'm very animated sometimes.
Yeah.
So it was a huge honor to go down to Mexico and officiate his wedding. It was an absolute beautiful ceremony, beautiful bride. Groom is a great friend of mine. And so it's a lot of fun. If anybody needs a wedding officiated, my book's open. I'm taking names. We can work out the details. Thank you for putting that out there. I think it's going to go on the website soon. Yeah.
Yeah, it can't, that's one of those things we can't ignore. We've got to make sure we get out there, because enjoying life and celebrating things throughout life, that's what it's all about. And gosh, I've so enjoyed my conversation, Nathan. I really appreciate you sharing your family's journey, sharing about your law firm and what has inspired you, and some of the great things that you guys do. So thank you for sharing all that and spending some time with us today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for having me on. And if anybody comes by the Birmingham Zoo, we're going to be there for their Glow Wild Festival from November until January. It's a nighttime thing. It's a really great event they put on. We're one of the mainline sponsors for that. So y'all come out, enjoy that time, and just tell me you saw our stuff there. It always makes it worth it when we hear people give us good, feedback on our marketing.
Awesome. Before we let you go, Nathan, how can folks who want to reach out to your firm, what's the best way? And I'm going to put a link to the website in the show notes, but I want you to share the firm information.
Sure. Yeah. So they can call the firm. If you Google us, it's Abogados Centro Legal, which is just attorneys legal center in Spanish. So we're laser focused on the Spanish market. You can also look us up on Facebook at Abogados Centro Legal, or our phone number is 205-940-2233. Again, that's 205-940-2233, or centro.legal, CENTRO.legal. It's kind of our short URL to our website. Or they can contact you and just say, hey, who's that Spanish speaking lawyer? Bernard, and hopefully you'll send them my way.
Always will, always will. Well, thank you, Nathan. I sure appreciate our time together. And we will, as we do every Tuesday at 10 o'clock Central, Nomberg Law Live, interesting conversations with people in their areas of expertise. And Nathan Harris certainly fits that bill. And I hope you guys have a safe rest of your week. And we'll catch you this time next week. Y'all be well.
All right. Thank y'all.